Hello and welcome back to followers of the Kaspa journey. Today we're going to be getting into Kaspa versus Ethereum, and we're also going to be looking at the two different consensus mechanisms that they both use, proof of work versus proof of stake. So before we get into it today, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also don't forget to check out the Patreon if you are interested in a private trading community. So initially, just looking at the market cap of Kaspa versus Ethereum. The current market cap of Kaspa is 3.7 billion versus a market cap of 427 billion for Ethereum. So Ethereum is around 100 times larger than Kaspa is. Now, the current supply of Kaspa is 23.9 billion Kaspa versus a supply of 120 million for Ethereum. Now, overall, around 83.4% of the total supply of Kaspa has been mined, with Kaspa having a maximum supply of 28.7 billion. But the maximum supply of Ethereum is infinity. There is no hard cap on the supply of Ethereum. And based on this, you can take your position of Kaspa and figure out exactly what percentage of the network that you own, and what percentage of the network that, assuming you never sell, you will always own, because nobody can ever dilute you and nobody can ever debase your share of the ledger. Whereas if you own a certain stake of Ethereum, then you have no idea what your percentage stake of the network is going to be in, say, 10 to 20 years' time. And so purely based on the market cap of Kaspa versus Ethereum, if and when Kaspa ever reaches the market cap of Ethereum, then it'll be worth $17.93 per Kaspa token. And so if you are able to get yourself 1366 Kaspa, which currently costs around $300, then if and when Kaspa ever reaches the market cap of Ethereum, that amount would be worth $24.5 thousand. And using the power law, we can actually work out when this is predicted to happen. So the Kaspa power law predicts that one Kaspa will reach a fair value of $17.93 on the 11th of October 2028. So if the power law holds, then it will take around 4.5 years for Kaspa to reach Ethereum's current market cap, at least in terms of fair value. And so it was actually Vitalik Buterin, who is the creator of Ethereum, that coined the word the trilemma. So Vitalik states that the trade-offs are inevitable between three important properties: decentralization, scalability, and security. Decentralization is the core and nature of a blockchain. Security is an essential property, whereas scalability is the main challenge. In other words, the scalability trilemma states that we can only have two out of either decentralization, scalability, or security. However, that was until Kaspa came along, because Kaspa has solved the trilemma. And so purely looking at the scalability of Kaspa versus Ethereum, at current speeds of 1 blocks per second, Kaspa can handle 400 transactions per second. However, when the network is scaled up to 100 blocks per second, Kaspa will be able to handle 40,000 transactions per second, which is around Visa level scale transactions. Whereas Ethereum, in its current state, can handle around 13 to 15 transactions per second, with the maximum ever recorded transactions per second of Ethereum being 62. And because of this relatively low level of scalability that Ethereum has, the gas fees are quite a common problem on Ethereum. So here we have a graph of the average transaction fee of Ethereum over time, denoted in US dollars. And while the overall average transaction fee has been around $2.4, the past 4 to 5 years, transaction fees have been a recurring problem on the Ethereum chain, at points even reaching as high as $100 per transaction. And so in its current state, Ethereum is not scalable at all. However, when we look at Kaspa, Kaspa has a very low transaction fee compared to Ethereum. So the median Kaspa transaction fee is 0.002 Kaspa. And at the current price of Kaspa, that is equal to a fraction of a penny. So that is equivalent of 0.00003 US dollars. Now, this will of course rise as the value of Kaspa rises. However, if and when Kaspa ever reaches the market cap of Ethereum, so a 100 times increase in price, then assuming the transaction fee remains constant at 0.0002 Kaspa, then that would still be equivalent to 1/3 of a penny, which would be 100 times cheaper than the average Ethereum transaction, and around 200 to 300 times cheaper than the average Ethereum transaction for the past few years. Now, there is also another difference in the Kaspa versus Ethereum protocols, in the fact that Kaspa was fair launched, whereas Ethereum had a pre-mine. So with Ethereum had 72 million ETH pre-mined before the ICO, and of those 72 million, 12 million were allocated to the Ethereum Foundation, whereas Kaspa was completely fair launched, meaning there was no pre-mine and mining was available to anyone who knew about the Kaspa protocol since the Genesis block, with 0 coins being pre-allocated to the Kaspa team. And so this completely fair launched protocol means that it has been harder for Kaspa to get listed on tier 1 exchanges. Because the team don't have any pre-allocated coins, then that means that the exchanges have to gain Kaspa the same way everybody else does, by buying it over the counter at fair market price. And because exchanges need a huge liquidity pool, this is extremely expensive. And that is one reason that it is taking Kaspa a lot longer than a lot of other protocols to be listed, because there is no team that is able to pay an exchange to list them and provide the liquidity for that exchange. And now the pre-allocation of 12 million Ethereum has actually become a little bit more sinister since something called the Ethereum merge. And so the Ethereum merge is when Ethereum switched from proof of work to a proof of stake protocol. So proof of stake is a system where holders of the cryptocurrency lock up or stake their coins and use them to vote on the valid blockchain and get rewarded with more coins for successfully creating new blocks. Instead of committing electricity and processing power to create new blocks on the blockchain, they're committing their stake of coins to do so. And the reason they did this is because traditionally, proof of work protocols have been more difficult to scale and less scalable than proof of stake protocols. And so again, this move was made to try and increase the scalability of Ethereum and bring down gas fees. However, this is where the pre-mine of Ethereum becomes a little bit more sinister, because the amount of Ethereum you own gives you more power and more control over the protocol, and having a greater amount of Ethereum gives you more power. Then that pre-allocation to the Ethereum Foundation, even if at the time it was relatively innocent move, because of the move from proof of work to proof of stake, that has inadvertently given the individuals and organizations who were given the original pre-mine more power and more control over the blockchain. And so proof of stake is fundamentally legacy tech. It's what corporations and banks have run for centuries, because when you have a consensus mechanism that doesn't involve work or proof of work or physical power, you instead have to use a governance solution where people, one way or another, and chosen through various different mechanisms, have power and have voting rights over the system. And work and proof of work is the only thing that can reduce or eliminate that governance. So in this way, proof of work systems are essentially a commodity, whereas proof of stake systems are inherently an equity. Proof of work blockchains have essentially recreated commodities in digital form, because the only way to acquire a new commodity is by producing work and putting work into the acquisition of that new commodity. Whereas proof of stake blockchains essentially recreate equities in digital form, whereby large holders of that network and system, just like with equities or shares, have voting power and voting rights over the consensus of the chain. And so going back to those 12 million ETH that were pre-mined and given to the Ethereum Foundation, and also due to the fact that wealth distribution generally follows a power law. So instead of following a normal distribution of a bell curve, where wealth is essentially evenly distributed and evenly concentrated within a population, it is in fact a power law distribution. So that means that a very small percentage of the population owns and controls a large proportion of the wealth. And so it is fundamentally because of this wealth distribution that makes proof of stake a questionable consensus mechanism, because especially over time, wealth will always trend to a smaller and smaller number of individuals who hold that wealth and hold that power. Well, that will give those individuals voting rights and control over the consensus mechanism of the blockchain. Whereas in a proof of work system, your percentage ownership of the ledger and of the chain does not give you any more power or control over the ledger if you own a large percentage versus if you own a small percentage. It doesn't matter if you own 2 billion Kaspa versus if you own 2,000 Kaspa. You have no more say or control over the consensus than anybody else does. The only way that you can have a say over the consensus of the blockchain or of the block DAG is via inputting physical power. And this fundamentally all comes back to physics. Proof of work is the consensus mechanism of life, whereas proof of stake is an attempt to override the laws of physics using written code. And now we're actually going to see a video of Vitalik talking about this.
Proof of work is based on the laws of physics. And so you sort of have to work with the world as it is, right? You have to work with, electricity as it is, hardware as it is, what computers are as it is. Whereas because proof of stake is virtualized in this way, it's basically letting us create a simulated universe that has its own laws of physics. And that just gives the us as protocol developers a lot more freedom to optimize the system around actually having all of the different security properties that we want, right? And if we want the system to have a particular security guarantee, and then like often there is a way to modify the proof of stake mechanism to also achieve it. So it's just much more flexible, and it shows through in the efficiency and the security of the network.
And so, as you can see, proof of stake is essentially a form of abstract power versus the proof of work physical power, and it is an attempt to bypass the laws of physics using written code. When you have abstract power is fundamentally non-inclusive. Not everybody gets to have a high rank within that abstract power system. Usually there's one person at the top and they have the vast majority of the power, and then there's a hierarchy of people with decreasing power as you go down the pyramid. Therefore, because it is non-inclusive, and non-inclusive of the people at the bottom of the pyramid who don't have stake in that abstract power system and in that abstract power hierarchy, it is not representative of those people within that system. However, physical power is representative. Anyone can exert physical power. Physical power is the true level playing field of life, and it is truly decentralized. And another issue with abstract power hierarchies, such as a proof of stake system, is that it attracts and it incentivizes people who want to abuse that system and who want to gain a lot of control and authority over the resources and over the distribution of resources, because it fundamentally represents a huge honeypot that they are able to abuse and take advantage of the trust of that system. And that is why you often get, psychopaths in positions of power, because they are actually attracted to those positions of power. So inevitably, what will play out with proof of stake systems is that those who seek power and those who wish to control, the course of ownership of resources will be attracted to those proof of stake systems, because it fundamentally represents a honeypot situation that they can take advantage of. Whereas the only way they can take advantage of a proof of work system is if they can gather enough physical power in order to override the system. And as Kaspa grows in hash rate and in market cap, then this becomes less and less of a threat as time goes on. And this is why it baffles me a little bit that Ethereum is the second largest crypto, and with a market cap of essentially $500 billion. I understand that it was the first blockchain to introduce smart contracts, which was a huge thing at the time. But the entire original point of cryptocurrency was to become a trustless form of trade and a trustless system and a permissionless system. And Ethereum inevitably will become a trust-based system and will no longer be a permissionless system because of the abstract power hierarchies that it creates and because of the distribution of wealth and distribution of control of the ledger, which will inevitably gather in a smaller and smaller number of hands. And that is why I think it is very, very possible for Kaspa to actually flip Ethereum, not just its current market cap, but the future market cap that Ethereum will have, which will then put Kaspa in the second spot of the number 2 largest cryptocurrency. And it's difficult to predict exactly when this is going to happen because it's difficult to predict the exact growth of Ethereum, but I suspect that this will happen sometime in the late 2020s or early 2030s. So thank you very much, you guys, for watching. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and also to follow me on X. But other than that, thank you for watching, and until next time, cheers.